When I was first moving toward ordination, one of the things I struggled with was the fact that as United Methodists, we're called to itinerate. We take a vow to say that we're willing to go where we are sent. And I love that on the one hand, but on the other hand, I was single, and that was a big part of it because I didn't really want to be single necessarily, and I thought, if I get sent to some little town, and how is all that going to work, and God, how are you going to make this work? My last year of seminary, I'm waiting for the bishop to call, where am I going to go? And Bill Barnes had just retired from Edge Hill, and I thought, that's where I want to go. I'm going to serve in the inner city, and so I get a call, and the bishop wants to send me to Brentwood, which is my home church, and I struggled with that, and as I was praying about it, the image of Jonah came to my mind. Jonah, who said, well, I don't want to go to those people, when in fact the irony was, they're my people. It's exactly the people who raised me and taught me the faith. I was an associate at Brentwood, and it was just a wonderful place to learn and grow and love and be loved, and lots of ministry out in the community, and a partnership with Hobson in East Nashville. So it was a wonderful experience. During my time there, I met my husband, David. That's a whole nother God story I'd be happy to share. So we had this wonderful romantic story. We married and had our first child, and I wanted at that time to go part-time. So I was ready at that point to move from Brentwood, and I thought, okay, now I want to go to a small church somewhere where I can preach every Sunday, and waiting for the call from the bishop. And my DS comes to see me and says, we're going to send you to Christ as an associate. And I thought, I don't understand what God is up to. And once again, it has just been exactly where I needed to be. The whole journey and everything I have learned there, and just fell in love with the people there. I was an associate there for 6 years. They named me the interim lead pastor there. And then the Bishop Wills decided at conference time to take the word interim away and to appoint me as lead pastor there, where I've been for 8 years. I mean, I have a memory of being 4 years old and preaching to my stuffed animals. And I always loved the hymnal for some reason, just the prayers, and I loved church, but I had not ever heard a woman preach. I had never, I remember my mom, the first time women helped serve communion at church, my mother was sort of taken aback by that, like, they're standing up there serving communion. And then, of course, she was my biggest cheerleader when I went into seminary. We get appointed 1 year at a time, and every year there's a consultation with your district superintendent. Knowing that I've committed to go where I'm sent is an act of surrender and an act of trust. And I really do trust that our bishop and our district superintendents are very prayerful in how they make those decisions. But I think it's really good for the church because it keeps us as congregations from being pastor-centered. And it helps empower the congregation to take ownership of, this is our shared ministry. And regardless of who's in the pulpit or who's sitting in the senior pastor's office, we know who we are and who God has called us to be. I think for the past few years, I know that I've been on the radar a little bit with the district superintendent and the bishop. I've been aware internally that this is a possibility. And even in my own prayer life, in my own self-awareness, I have felt that readiness opening up, that God's time was coming. And so it wasn't a huge surprise when Harriet Bryan's name first popped up on my cell phone. She said, we are projecting you to go to West End. That was such a tremendous gift to know that, I would be considered to come to this wonderful congregation that has been such a bedrock of ministry in Nashville. And then there was also a little bit of, oh my goodness, I'm not ready. How do I do this? All of that kind of mixed in when that call first came. So there was just a lot of emotion all at once in that one phone call. The first official step was April 30th when Harriet Bryan brought David and me to meet the staff parish committee. And that was a wonderful meeting. She had us tell our story And then people went around and shared what they loved about West End, and there was just a wonderful spirit in that meeting. And Harriet ended with communion and had David and me serve communion to the staff parish committee, which was beautiful. And then since then, I've met with Michael a couple of times, and he brought Matt with him to lunch. And then I met with Lisa and Aaron, and I've had several meetings with staff just to talk about worship on July 2nd and worship the next few weeks out. And Melanie's been wonderful. She gave me a big 3-ring binder full of all sorts of good information and bulletins and newsletters. One of the things that our bishop has drawn our attention to as a conference is, what is your neighborhood? That you are called not just to your church, but to your community. And what's going on in your neighborhood, and how can we be mindful of the hurt in our neighborhood? And so I like that idea of just kind of looking around and what's going on in our neighborhood and what might God be calling us to do. You're already on the move, and now I get to come in alongside and learn about where you've been and what your dreams are for where you're headed. And I'm coming with my own journey and my own experiences, and maybe there are some things I can add to that or bring to that conversation, listening to each other and then praying and discerning, so what does God want to do with us now?